Jenna, maybe it's best if you don't come home this year. That sentence turned my chest into ice and my family into strangers. I held the phone to my ear, frozen. The silence on the other end was only a few seconds long, but it stretched like a chasm between us. I thought maybe I'd misheard. Maybe my father was worried I was too busy, or that I needed rest after the quarter-end project. I cleared my throat and said softly, "It's okay, Dad. I've already blocked out the weekend. I really want to be there. I booked my flight." His voice cut through, firm and sharp this time. "Fiona's bringing her new boyfriend. He's a CFO. He's very polished. Your job, it's hard to explain. Your presence might make things awkward." I felt my fingers tighten around the phone. There was no malice in his tone, just cold calculation. A social cost-benefit analysis. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. Finally, I asked, "Are you saying I shouldn't come because I'm an embarrassment?" A pause. Then the words landed, heavy and final. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." He hung up. I stood in my living room, blinking. The espresso on my table had gone cold. Outside, the March sunlight filtered through white curtains, soft but powerless. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even shocked. Number I was tired. For most of my life, I'd lived in Fiona's silhouette. At family reunions, she was the one in designer heels, perfect lipstick, and sweet laughter that disarmed even the nosiest aunt. I was the one doing something in biotech, the quiet girl with little to say and too much to prove. When the pipe burst in my parents' bathroom last year, it was me they called, at midnight. When the heating system broke, I wired money before they could finish describing the problem, and month after month I paid the electricity, water, cable, without ever being asked how I was doing. Not once did they say, "Thank you." Not even a, "We're proud of you." Just this, "Don't come home." I sat down on the edge of my bed, the phone still warm in my hand. I opened my laptop and pulled up my banking dashboard. My fingers hovered over the transaction history as rows of monthly charges filled the screen. Internet, gas, utilities, the same amounts like clockwork. $322.47, $216.10, $186.33, every single month. I hit pause on autopay, one by one. Electricity, canceled. Internet, canceled. Water, canceled. A message popped up. "Are you sure?" Yes, I was sure. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long moment, then leaned back. The sun shifted behind a cloud, casting a dull gray across the apartment. Somewhere, a neighbor closed a door. The silence returned. I thought of Fiona, of the times she told me, with a wrinkle of her nose, that I should consider a more presentable job. One easier to explain to strangers. One that didn't sound like I lived in a lab coat. It wasn't resentment that filled me now. It was clarity. The clarity that comes when the fog lifts and all that's left is what is, not what you hoped could be. I wasn't part of their idea of family. I was the fallback, the safety net, the utility bill they didn't have to think about. I used to believe that if I just worked hard enough, if I just kept giving, maybe someday they'd look at me the way they looked at her. But that someday never came. And now, it never would. I closed my banking app, took a slow breath. I wouldn't go home for Dad's birthday. Not because I wasn't welcome, but because I finally understood the invitation was never real to begin with. My gaze drifted to my desk. My inbox had piled up while I'd been on the phone. Dozens of unread notifications, none of them urgent. I opened a few out of habit, scanning for anything that needed approval. One email subject caught my eye. HR request. I clicked it open and felt my stomach pause mid-breath. New staff transfer, pending approval. Damian Torres, finance lead. They excluded me to make things less awkward. So I decided to let awkwardness find them, naturally. The soft hum of fluorescent lights overhead was the only sound in my office. I sipped a cup of black coffee, lukewarm now, as my monitor cast a pale glow on the clean white desk. It was late, after hours, but I didn't feel like leaving. Not yet. Nexora Biolabs never really slept. The finance floor across the hall still buzzed faintly with end-of-quarter activity. Meanwhile, I sat alone in my corner office on the 12th floor, above the city noise, looking down at the world like a bystander. Unseen, but always watching. I clicked into the HR platform. My cursor hovered over a pending internal transfer. Subject: Damian Torres, Finance Lead, New Jersey, Boston HQ. I opened the profile, and there he was. The photo was polished, corporate, a dark blazer, a clean haircut, a confident smile. But it was the eyes that pulled me back, just a flicker of recognition. I had met him before, a biotech finance panel in New York, last October. He'd shaken my hand, polite, professional. He'd called me Ms. Blake. Neither of us realized in that moment the tangled thread between us. Or maybe he had, but I hadn't cared enough to ask. The irony pressed in. Damien, the boyfriend Fiona had gushed about, the man they'd essentially exiled me for, was about to walk through my office door in less than 2 weeks. I glanced at the Approve Transfer button. No hesitation. Click. Approved. I closed the window. Back then, when Fiona's bathroom pipe had burst and water was flooding the floor, I'd been the one to call the emergency plumber at 2 a.m. I paid the invoice without a second thought. Fiona was on vacation in Miami, and my parents had said, "You're the only one who's not busy." But I had been busy, just invisible. Now I wasn't busy at all. I just didn't care. My phone buzzed against the edge of the desk. I glanced at the screen. Fiona: "Internet's down. Guests are coming. Mom is freaking out. What's going on?" Buzz: "Valerie, sweetheart, could you check the payments? The cable's out and your dad's trying to reset the modem, but nothing's working." Buzz: "Fiona again. This is not the day to be petty, Jenna. Seriously, fix this." I leaned back in my chair. I hadn't missed a payment in over 2 years, until 3 nights ago. When Dad told me not to come, he'd made it sound like a kindness, like he was protecting me. But the truth was, he was protecting them. From me, from awkwardness, from comparison, from reality. I opened my messages. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I typed, 3 nights ago, Dad told me not to come. I'm honoring that. Then I stared at it. The words looked small, even on the big screen. So neat, so restrained. I hit backspace. The message vanished, like it had never existed. I didn't owe them a sentence. The truth didn't need an announcement. Let them scramble. Let them wonder. Another ping. Fiona: "You're being selfish. I didn't even unlock the phone. I just let the screen fade back to black and placed it face down on the desk. The irony burned behind my eyes like a quiet laugh I wouldn't release. All these years, I had been the one who fixed everything. The pipe bursts, the lost Wi-Fi passwords, the missed insurance deadlines. Now they had to face what I looked like when I did nothing. I stood up, stretching my arms over my head. The city glittered below, unaware of the chaos flickering inside a quiet suburban house 40 minutes away. Jenna, the reliable daughter, the shadow, the fix-it machine, was no longer responding. I sat back down and refreshed my inbox. At the top of the queue, HR system. Confirmation. Damian Torres, Finance Lead, reports to Boston HQ on March 18th. I smiled, not out of spite, just a small, steady exhale of inevitability. Let awkwardness find them. "She's just sulking," I heard my mother say. "No, Mom, I was done sulking 2 years ago." The phone buzzed in my palm, vibrating with the low urgency of someone who believed they still had access. I didn't answer right away. I sat on the edge of the window seat, peppermint tea cooling beside me, and watched the bare trees shift in the wind. March in Boston still carried the bite of late winter, but the sunlight pouring through my windows was warm, clean, undisturbed. Buzz, again. Aunt Renee. A video call. She had always been the only one who remembered my birthday without prompting, who mailed cards, even when I didn't reply. She was from a different branch of the family tree, the one that still believed silence was a sign of depth, not defiance. I exhaled and tapped accept. Her face appeared on screen, lit by the shaky glow of a flashlight. Behind her, everything was chaos, shadows moving, voices rising. The Blake house, but dim, unpowered, loud with stress. I could barely make out the kitchen tiles, though I recognized them like the back of my hand. Jenna, she corrected herself quickly. I'm sorry to bother you like this, but things here are... She didn't finish the sentence, just looked at me with a tired softness. They're spiraling. Valerie's panicking. Mark's blaming the neighbors, and Fiona's trying to restart the router with a hairdryer. I raised an eyebrow, said nothing. Renee hesitated, then asked, Could you just say something? Anything. Just to calm them down? I took a slow sip of tea, held the mug between my palms, and let the steam curl up into the space between us. Her request wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. It was the same reflex everyone in my family had, to expect me to fix things, but never to be part of them. Behind her, the voices rose again. She's probably just sulking, my mother's voice rang out, sharper than usual. I mean, who does that? No one would be heartless enough to do this on your father's birthday. And then, another voice, familiar, male, crisp. Claire, Liam's almost here. Someone call the damn power company already. Aunt Renee didn't flinch, but I saw the flicker of discomfort behind her eyes. I gave her a half smile, dry, quiet. Then, in the background, a new figure entered the frame, Damien. His suit was impeccable, of course, charcoal gray, tailored, his hair combed back with exacting precision. He looked polished, prepared, until his eyes landed on the screen, until he saw me. He stopped walking, froze mid-step. Jenna, he asked softly, unsure. All the noise died behind him. Fiona's face turned toward the phone. Her eyes darted from me to Damien. Confusion, then fear. Mark's voice cracked. Wait, what did he just say? Damien straightened slowly, his face tightening with recognition. She's Jenna Blake, he said clearly. Then, turning slightly toward the crowd behind him, he added, my direct superior. Co-founder of Nexora Biolabs, she approved my transfer to Boston. The room behind him fell completely silent. Valerie's hand, holding a tray of cupcakes, trembled visibly. One of the cupcakes tilted and rolled off the edge, landing on the kitchen floor with a soft, anticlimactic thud. Mark's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Fiona's face blanched, her lips pressed so tightly together they nearly disappeared. I didn't say a word. Not hi, not told you so, not remember me now. I just nodded once. Damien's eyes held mine for a second longer than necessary, his expression now a careful mix of apology and something else. Respect. Then he stepped back and out of frame. Aunt Renee, still holding the phone, didn't move. But I saw her expression shift too. Not pity, not shock, recognition. I reached forward, gently tapped the red button, and ended the call. No anger, no apology, just silence. And it hits harder than anything she could have said. You let him say that? Right in front of everyone? Fiona's voicemail was half sob, half accusation, but I didn't let anything. I simply didn't stop the truth. The voice message sat unopened on my phone, its little waveform thumbnail pulsing like it had a heartbeat of its own. I didn't listen to it right away. I let it wait, just like they'd let me wait for years. Outside my office window, Boston's skyline glimmered under early morning fog. Nexora's headquarters was already alive. The finance team buzzed behind glass. The lab wing down the hall hummed in silence. My desk was as still as I was. I checked my inbox, pushing away the notification from Fiona. A different name caught my eye. From Damien Torres. Subject, I'm sorry. I opened it. Jenna, I didn't know. I see everything now. Your role, your grace, your silence. Last night, I ended it. I couldn't stay in something that stood on lies and cruelty. I respected you before. I respect you more now. Damien, I closed the email without replying. I wasn't cold. I just had nothing to add. The message wasn't surprising. If anything, it arrived right on schedule. The next one came from Valerie. Jenna, your sister is devastated. She hasn't eaten since last night. Can you at least explain what happened? Just help her understand. She feels humiliated. And your father, he's trying to keep the family together. Please don't stay silent now." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought of every time I'd kept quiet to keep their version of the family intact. I thought of the first check I wrote to cover their electric bill when Dad got laid off and never told anyone. I thought of the text Fiona sent last year on my birthday. "Hope you're well. Can you cover the internet again?" Now suddenly, my silence was cruelty. Another ping. "Fiona again. You ruined everything. You could have stepped in, said something, fixed it. But no, you let him say that. You made me look like a fool." I leaned back, letting the chair creak beneath me. I pictured her standing in that kitchen, guests watching, her world shrinking moment by moment, not because of anything I did, but because of what she assumed I never could be. She'd performed for years. I just wasn't part of the show anymore. I picked up my phone. For the first time since the night of the call with my father, I typed a message to Fiona. I didn't ruin anything. I just wasn't part of the performance anymore. Send. There was no catharsis, no weight lifted. It was just truth. Nothing more. The office door remained closed as I turned back to my monitor. The day passed in emails and back-to-back meetings, metrics reviews, Q2 projections. No one at work mentioned anything unusual. No one had to. I carried no baggage here. No one expected me to fix what they broke. Mid-afternoon, Aunt Renee sent a short message. "I'm proud of you, that's all. Just that. I'm proud." I stared at it longer than I needed to. Then, slowly, I smiled. At 6:12 p.m., I closed my laptop. The sun outside had dipped low, painting my office with amber light. I grabbed my coat, tucked my phone into my bag, and walked out, heels echoing softly down the hallway. When I reached my apartment, the city lights had begun to flicker on, one by one. I placed my keys in the tray by the door, set my bag down, and finally let myself exhale. A quiet evening, just as I wanted. Then, 3 firm knocks, not a text, not a call, a knock. I approached slowly and looked through the peephole. Mark and Valerie stood just outside, their expressions unreadable. Valerie clutched a file folder against her chest like it was a shield. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched. "We thought you'd be more understanding." "We're your parents, Jenna." "Exactly. So why am I the one always paying the bill?" The words had barely left Valerie's mouth before the air in my apartment shifted. Just slightly, but enough. Like the drop in pressure before a storm. I stood in the kitchen doorway, arms folded, letting the moment breathe while they sat stiffly on my living room couch. It wasn't the first time I'd heard that line. It had always been her favorite, a preface to guilt. A carefully phrased nudge designed to remind me of the unspoken debt I apparently owed them for being born. I stepped into the room slowly and sat across from them. Between us, the low coffee table gleamed in the late afternoon light. My apartment was silent except for the distant hum of traffic 6 floors below. Valerie clutched a manila folder to her chest like a life raft. Mark's jaw was already tight, his elbows propped on his knees, leaning forward like a man expecting resistance. "We've been thinking," Valerie began, her voice tremulous but rehearsed. "We know things have shifted, but we still need a little help, Jenna. Just enough to keep things going. $2,000 a month, just the basics. Electricity, groceries, the insurance premiums, nothing extravagant." Mark jumped in, like she'd missed a cue. "Claire's not doing well. Since the breakup, she's been a mess. She needs time, space. You've always been the stable one, and this wouldn't even make a dent in your salary." I nodded, slowly, letting them talk, letting them believe, even for one more minute, that they still had the upper hand. When they finally went quiet, I rose and walked to the hallway closet. I retrieved a thin blue folder, sleek, precise, and laid it gently on the coffee table between us. "I've already had a contract drawn up," I said calmly. Valerie blinked. Mark's eyes narrowed. "What kind of contract?" I opened it and slid the top page toward them. "It's simple," I said. "I'll support you. $2,000 a month, every month. In exchange, when the time comes, all assets, house, car, accounts, will go to me. No disputes, no arguments. Silence. A real silence this time. Not the awkward, searching kind, but the deep, stunned variety. Oh, the kind that happens when someone realizes the rules of the game just changed, and they're no longer holding the pieces. Valerie looked down at the page, lips parting slightly. Mark leaned back, scoffing. You're seriously putting conditions on helping your own parents? I didn't flinch. I'm putting boundaries where there were never any. He slapped a palm against the table, not loud, but enough to rattle the glasses I'd poured water into earlier. This is extortion. No, I said, still steady. Extortion is what happens when someone threatens you. I'm offering a deal, one that's clear, one that comes after over 2 years of me covering your utilities without a single thank you. His face flushed. We raised you. I met his gaze. And I paid your internet, and your water, and your cable, for 2 years. Valerie opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her fingers trembled slightly on the folder. Mark stood up abruptly. Unbelievable, he muttered. You think a little success gives you the right to rewrite the rules. No, I said. But it gives me the right to stop pretending they never existed. Valerie stood more slowly. She reached for her purse, but paused halfway. For a second, I thought she might say something. Apologize, maybe. But instead, she adjusted the strap on her shoulder and looked away. Mark stalked toward the door, yanking it open. Valerie followed behind him, turning back once before she crossed the threshold. Her eyes met mine, uncertain, wounded, but not enough. I didn't move to walk them out, didn't reach for a hug, didn't explain. When the door clicked shut behind them, I stayed exactly where I was. The apartment was quiet again, the fading light casting long shadows across the rug. I looked around, at the empty room, the untouched glasses, the contract still resting on the table. For the first time, it didn't feel lonely. It feels earned. You're his boss. Please say something so he'll come back to me. That was Fiona's final message, and it said everything. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the message. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally understood I didn't need to say anything. My inbox was full, campaign projections, lab trial updates, procurement approvals. But this message, blinking quietly between push notifications, was louder than all of it. There was no hello, no how are you, just urgency, entitlement, desperation wrapped in pleading, and all I could think was, I used to beg too. 2 years ago, after I collapsed from exhaustion in my apartment and ended up in urgent care, I waited for Fiona to call. She never did. When I texted her after, just to let her know, I got a thumbs-up emoji. Now she wanted me to help her hold on to something she thought would last forever, built on charm and control. I closed the message and opened the next one. Damien? Jenna, I know you didn't ask for any of this. You stayed silent when it would have been easy to grandstand. That silence said more than any speech ever could. Thank you for letting me see clearly. I won't forget it. D. I read it twice, maybe 3 times, then hit reply. Damien, you don't owe me anything. Everyone is responsible for how they choose to see others. I'm glad you chose truth. J. No anger, no bitterness, just clarity. At 5:45 p.m., I packed my laptop into its sleeve and walked out of my office. The sun was still above the skyline, but dipping low. Nexora's building cast long, sharp shadows across the sidewalk. As I stepped into the street, I passed 2 of my junior analysts reviewing slides by the coffee stand. They nodded, not with nervousness, but with ease. That was something I had built, a place where respect didn't depend on appearances. By 6:10, I was seated in a corner cafe, just down from Copley Square, my favorite spot, quiet, tucked beneath a bookstore. The table by the window was open. I ordered a vanilla latte and leaned back into the warm wood chair, letting the first sip settle between my ribs. Outside, the city moved on. Horns, laughter, the scuff of a shoe on sidewalk. No one knew what had happened at that birthday. No one knew who'd said what, and for once, I didn't care if they did. On the wall near the counter, a hand-carved wooden sign caught my eye. I'd seen it before, but today it meant more. Home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a choice. I smiled. I had made mine. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. Calendar reminder, board meeting. Nexora expansion, Europe strategy. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I just swiped it away. The future's waiting. In a world where silence once masked suffering, Jenna turned it into her sharpest weapon, calm, precise, and undeniable. The ones who dismissed her as forgettable were left scrambling in the shadow of the truth she never needed to shout. Because justice doesn't always arrive with fanfare. It often walks in quietly, dressed as clarity and consequence. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, it may come late, but once heard, it resonates forever. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is refusing to play the part they wrote for you and choosing instead to write your own ending.